I've been thinking about some things lately, mostly since we've started this whole YouTube thing. And, we've gotten to know a lot of really wonderful people on this platform and through different channels that are on YouTube, and had the opportunity to learn about so many different types of disabilities, and not just what we're living with here in our own home, but lots and lots of people out there that are in the community living with all sorts of different conditions and disabilities. And I got to thinking about this, and it occurred to me that the rights of people with disabilities and these accessibility laws have really not been in place in our country for a very long period of time. In fact, and this will date me. You all already know that I'm old. I mean, we're not that old, but okay. So we graduated from high school in 1975. Now, I can remember in 1975 and before that, there was this one girl in particular that, well, she didn't go to my school because in those days, those kids, the kids with disabilities, actually went to school in a completely different building from us. This girl that I am remembering rode my bus. She lived close enough to my home to ride my bus. I would see her every morning get on the bus and every afternoon get off the bus. And I had no idea who she was. I remember being very intrigued by her. I remember wondering what her name was. I didn't know how to approach her. I didn't know how to strike up a conversation with her. I just always was left to wonder, who was this girl? Why didn't she go to school with us? Where did she go to school? What was this all about? And and that's a very sad state of affairs, that things used to be that way. And I'm so thankful now that the laws have changed, and the inclusion and accessibility and all that to the education and the curriculum, the free and appropriate public education is available to everyone regardless of their disability. And so my children get to benefit from that. Not only do they benefit from that, but they benefit from getting to know their typical peers. And their typical peers, frankly, get to benefit a lot by getting to know my children as well. We had another story that I have growing up. I had an uncle who, at the age of 5, somehow contracted hydrocephaly. We used to just call it water on the brain, and something happened to him, and his head grew to be just enormous, this almost the size of his entire upper body. It caused him to become blind. It caused him to be a quadriplegic, and he was kind of stuck mentally or intellectually, I guess you could say, at age 5. He was just stuck there for the rest of his life. He ended up living, I believe, into his 60s. He has since passed away, but that man spent the bulk of his life from age 5 until the day he died in an institution. They called it school. I don't know if they taught him anything, from a curriculum and an education perspective. I have no idea, because when we would go to visit, we were only allowed into the visitors lobby and not beyond those double doors. This was a time in our history when the attendants, the nurses, were all dressed in white from head to toe. They wore the white nurses' shoes and the white stockings and the white nurses' dress and the white nurses' cap, and it was all very sterile. It was a very sterile institution that he had to spend his entire life in. Now, he was one of the happiest people that you would ever want to meet. He knew who we all were. He knew our names. He knew our relation to him. He knew everything about us. And the sad thing is, I don't think that my grandmother could have seen to his care. She was a tiny, frail woman, and I don't think she could possibly have physically lifted him or, or anything like that. I don't think she had a choice. And I think that I've wondered, I don't know, since I've been looking into these things and researching our history, I don't know, but what she wasn't even allowed to have him at home. I don't really know the answer to that. I think that having a home health care aide would have been out of the question for them financially. I don't think that it was feasible. I don't know how the insurances worked, back in that at that stage of the game. Um, but my uncle, he was not able to realize he didn't have the kind of life that my children have, or that a lot of you have who are subscribers and watching our videos and other videos of people in this community. And we're so thankful that these things have changed and that we understand that, these people are not broken. They're human beings that are deserving of a good life, is the best life, the most productive and happy life that they can possibly achieve. And they bring so much joy and happiness to everyone around them. Before the 70s, now I was born in 57, and and I didn't really pay much attention to this stuff, but looking back, I realized that during my childhood and upbringing and all that, we actually had laws in this country that were referred to. I'm going to try to say this without choking. This is very difficult for me to say. I can't even believe that we had this in this country. But we had what was known as and referred to as the ugly laws. And these laws would prohibit anyone with a physical deformity or a mental illness or a mental, an intellectual disability, blindness, deafness, whatever their disability would be. These people were not allowed to participate in the public life at all. They had to stay away from the general population. That was a law. And I believe that they were allowed to come out for purposes of education and training and that sort of thing. And it's sickening to think that we used to treat people like this, but we did. And I'm so thankful that we don't anymore. But I've realized too that a lot of these attitudes, it's not always the older generation. There's plenty of young people that I don't know. I think maybe it takes a couple of generations to fix things completely and to really kind of get on board with what's going on, and what's appropriate and how we should behave and treat people and that sort of thing. But there still are attitudes. There are attitudes of people who can't quite accept people who are different than they are, who can't communicate in the same way, who don't do things the same way that they do. And even in our family, we have experienced some of this kind of discrimination. And when the kids were little, I used to just think, it's one of those things where I didn't ever want to be a burden on somebody else. And certainly we didn't want to ever stay anywhere that we felt that we weren't welcome. And we understood that, that we come with a lot of drama and things that are maybe different. And, the dinner invitations and things like that stopped around the time our third child came. I think it just got to be a little too much for most people to handle. And at that point, we were understanding of that and compassionate toward people. We had one situation where a couple of our children were not allowed to participate in a specific activity. And I don't want to go into any details because I don't really want to call anybody out or anything like that. But it's a learning process. And they were not allowed to participate in this particular activity because there was another child participating in the activity, a typical child, who was afraid of one of my children. She was scared to death of her because of her appearance. And so rather than boy, I tell you, that wouldn't happen today. Okay, I've learned a few things and developed a much thicker skin and a much greater awareness of how things should be. I would not allow that to happen to my kids or anybody else's kids for that matter today. But we did. We went along with it and we left. And what should have happened is we should have had a conversation with the other child's parents, with the leaders of the program, and that sort of thing, so that everyone could be included and that my children could have participated. And it makes me sad to think that that happened. We've had a number of other situations, that weren't so pleasant. I will say that the vast majority of people when we go in public are just the nicest, kindest, most accommodating, sweetest people that they just shower us with love, and it's a wonderful thing. But we had another situation more recently than that first one where, again, we were asked to leave in a way that is kind of hard to believe, but we were asked to take our ugly handicapped kids and leave. And this was a situation where it was impossible for us to leave. Again, I won't go into the details, and I just won't go into the details. But we couldn't leave, and we didn't leave. And it just really broke my heart. It infuriated me, but it broke my heart to think that someone could say something like that, have those attitudes this day and age, and especially when you think back, the laws were actually called the ugly laws. My children are not ugly. They're not incapable. They're not broken. My kids are not broken. And you, those of you who are watching us that have, different disabilities that you're living with, you're not broken either. And we have to approach the education with kindness and understanding and empathy. But we got to tell people, that this kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated. It's just not going to be tolerated anymore. And I'm so thankful that we have a platform such as YouTube to come out, and we can have these kind of conversations and discussions and share our stories, and we have such a good life. And the flip side of that, I will tell you, I will share something with all of you that it's pretty remarkable, I think, because we for the longest time, we can't even go out in public. We do get stared at. I think that, there's a lot going on here. We've got, six blind kids. We've got, people from everybody in the family is from a different country and nationalities. And so oftentimes people will ask us what organization we're running, or if we run a school for the blind or whatever. But so we get that, and we've gotten that for a long time, and we welcome that because we love to meet new people and talk to people and just have a nice time. But this remarkable thing, Joe and I can barely take the kids anywhere out for dinner without some kind stranger picking up our tab. It's a beautiful thing. I know I've talked to other families and they say that this doesn't ever happen to them, and I just think it's a tremendous blessing for us, on so many levels. I've shared with you that he was out of work for the longest time, and so from that aspect, it was a blessing. And if any of you are watching, let me thank you now, from the bottom of my heart, because you usually leave before we can even know who you are, and you always do this anonymously. And usually, sometimes you come up to us, and we love that, and we so appreciate, from Dad's perspective, it's a blessing to have that bill paid. It's very expensive to have a family like this and all that. And so he's grateful on that level. And for me, it speaks to my heart in a way that is very hard to even articulate. I get very encouraged to know that what we're doing, apparently it touches people very deeply. And I'm not even sure that the people who are touched by our family can even articulate it themselves. But for me, I find it all very encouraging. This life can become very isolating at times. It's, we do pack a lot of drama here, and so sometimes it's hard for people to, to know quite how to have us participate with them, or to come and be part of our family that way. So it really is nice to know that somehow we touch people's hearts, and and that people are somehow changed, or just start thinking about things, even if all you do is just appreciate what you have. Appreciate that you have your eyesight, that you're able to walk, that you can talk, that you have a typical life, that you can do anything you want. I mean, my kids can do anything that they want and put their minds to too, but you guys, what I'm talking about. And so I really do appreciate that more than anything. The other stuff it's so small. When it does happen, it strikes you. It really hurts. It's like a I don't know, it's an attack, and it's hard to take sometimes. And I know that a lot of people they do put up with the negativity even more than we've had to in the past. But I just, November is National Caregivers Month, and I wanted to talk about that as well, in regards to the fact that back in the day, people with disabilities, they were in institutions, and I'm so glad it's not that way anymore. But what has happened is there's been a complete reversal, and family members are caring for their loved ones at home, which is great. It's beautiful. It's better for everyone that people can be home and stay and be a part of their family. But it's not easy. And I'm not talking about myself. Please don't think that I am, because my situation is a lot easier than a lot of other people. And it is a lot of work, but my kids do go to school, and I get my breaks when they go to school. And that's how I'm able to talk to you right now, because they're all in school. But for a lot of people, there's so many in this country. I think everybody knows somebody who is a full-time caregiver, whether it's a special needs child, or an aging parent, a sibling, an adult sibling that's not able to live on their own, or whatever. If you all could just think about these people, and just maybe reach out with a phone call, just give them a hug when you see them in public. If you have the time in your schedule and you can go and sit with them, and even if you don't feel like you could take a day and care for their loved one, if you don't feel that you could handle that, I think that the person who is giving the care would love it if you would just go sit and have coffee with them, and talk to them on the phone, or have lunch with them, or whatever. That would be a real blessing to them. So I think that's all I'm going to say about all of that today. It's just something that's been on my mind. It's a lot of different things, and it kind of all goes together at the same time. But I just want to take a minute too and just tell you all how much we appreciate you. I was always, because of some of those things early on, I was always very much overly protective of my children. I was that mom who signed no, you can't take pictures of my kid in school. I was very, very protective of them, and especially anything with the internet. I thought, oh, forget about that. We're not going to go there. I'm not going to subject my kids to that. I have been absolutely shocked at how much you all have loved on us, supported us, encouraged us. We're just stunned at at all of that. And we appreciate you all very much. We'll say in our comments all the time how much we love you. And it sounds cliche and corny and all that. I mean, we've never met in person. But I'm telling you that we're sincere when we say that. We really do love you. We appreciate that you're watching the videos. I'm so glad that somehow my kids are touching you all, deep in your hearts, and that you can enjoy being a part of their lives, and that you allow them to come in and participate in your lives as well. That means so much to us, and I'd like to just say thank you to all of you for that right now. We get very busy and go on about, trying to make these videos and bring you the good content. So I'd like to just take a few minutes and tell you all thank you. We do love you, and we'll see you in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That's something, we feel kind of weird about asking, but please do subscribe, and feel free to share. And we'd like to see the channel grow so that we can reach more people, help more people, love on more people, and just have a bigger party. It'll all be good in the end. Thanks so much. Bye.